Good morning. We welcome everyone. Our panel features A. Tyson Duva, nominated to be Assistant Attorney General, Criminal Division. 2 District Court nominees, Justice William J. Crane, Eastern District, Louisiana, Alexander Van Hook, Western District of Louisiana. Senators Kennedy and Moody will give introductions in a moment. In the meantime, I'd speak about Mr. Duva. He's been a federal prosecutor for nearly 2 decades in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Middle District, Florida. He has extensive experience conducting investigations, prosecuting a wide array of criminal offenses. These include drug trafficking, violent crime, public corruption, fraud, and illegal immigration. Mr. Duva has prosecuted hundreds of cases. He's tried 22 to verdict, and he's received numerous awards for his efforts from the U.S. Attorney's Office, as well as federal agencies, including Department of Homeland Security, ICE, IRS, FBI, and Secret Service. Mr. Duva's success in prosecuting difficult cases certainly commands respect, and his real-world experience will be an asset to the criminal division. Justice Crane has been an attorney for 4 decades, served as a judge for 15 years across every level of Louisiana state courts, spent 3 years as trial judge for Louisiana's 2nd Judicial District. Then he moved into appeals, serving on Louisiana's First Circuit Court of Appeals for 6 years. Since 2019, Justice Crane has served as the Supreme Court of Louisiana. As a jurist, Justice Crane has presided over and authored hundreds of judicial opinions. With his extensive experience as a lawyer and judge, he's extremely well qualified to serve on the federal bench. Mr. Van Hook is also well qualified. He clerked for judges on the U.S. Appeals Court for the 5th Circuit and on the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Louisiana. Since then, Mr. Van Hook's spent 25 years as a federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office, Western District, Louisiana. He's served as an assistant U.S. attorney, the deputy criminal chief, and multiple stints as first assistant and acting U.S. attorney in that office. Mr. Van Hook has extensive courtroom experience, litigating hundreds of cases and trying 18 cases to verdict before jury. He also clearly has the experience to make a fine judge. We'll hear more about our nominees in a moment. I look forward to hearing for each of them today. Before I turn to Senator Durbin, I'll ask everyone to keep their questions to 5 minutes. I'll also announce that after my round of questioning, Senator Kennedy has agreed to preside over the remainder of the hearing. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chairman Grassley. Today we'll hear from 2 judicial nominees and Andrew Tyson Duva, nominated to be Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division. Mr. Duva, I appreciate your coming by my office this week. Criminal Division prosecutors handle some of the most complex and important cases in this country, including public corruption, child exploitation and child sexual abuse material, white-collar crime, money laundering, violent crime, the list is long. This mission used to have bipartisan support, but the Trump administration has fired dozens of prosecutors simply because they prosecuted January 6 rioters, and he has gutted the key criminal division components. I discussed this with Mr. Duva. Look at the Public Integrity Section, also known as PIN, which is responsible for investigating and prosecuting public corruption cases. In March 2025, the Justice Department struck a corrupt bargain to conditionally dismiss charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for his cooperation with the Trump administration on the deportation campaign. In response, several prosecutors resigned from the Department of Justice, including the U.S. Attorney herself. A staunch conservative, she clerked for Justice Scalia and was appointed to her position by President Trump. She quit. According to public reporting and credible whistleblowers, then acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove, who is now a circuit judge, convened a meeting where he ordered Penn prosecutors to sign the motion to dismiss the charges against Adams or face unspecified consequences. At the end of the Biden administration, there were 30 prosecutors in this section of public integrity. Now the section has two. There is a longstanding requirement that prosecution of public officials be reviewed by Penn career prosecutors to ensure they are not politically motivated. Attorney General Bondi has reportedly eliminated this requirement. At the same time, illegally appointed interim U.S. Attorney Alina Habba is bragging that she will use her position as interim U.S. Attorney in New Jersey, quote, to turn New Jersey red, close quote, while she prosecutes a sitting member of Congress. Mr. Duva, in our meeting this week, you told me you found value in collaborating with Penn attorneys on public corruption cases you prosecuted, and you had at least one that was noteworthy and trial followed nationwide. So I want to hear from you when the questioning starts, how you'll rebuild this section, the public integrity section, and restore its authority should you be confirmed. I've heard the common refrain from Trump administration and its supporters that purging DOJ prosecutors will have no effect on fighting crime. The numbers tell a different story in the first year of the second Trump presidency. A recent Reuters article reported that the number of drug prosecutions under the Trump administration has dropped to the lowest level in decades. The number of money laundering prosecutions has dropped by 24%. Nor are gun crimes exempt. Felon in possession of firearm prosecutions have fallen 5% this year. I want to hear from Mr. Duva how he is going to reverse these troubling trends and how he can continue to divert resources from the Department of Justice to the mass deportation campaign without facing more statistics like these. Where are the Justice Department resources going if they're not going after narcotics and crimes like that? President Trump's mass deportation campaign. This isn't about reducing crime. Despite President Trump's claims that he's going after the worst of the worst, oh, you heard the litany, rapists, murderers, terrorists, criminally insane, sexual predators. It turns out that just days ago, one of my constituents, Maria Greeley, was detained by ICE agents despite carrying documentation proving she was an American citizen. The agents questioned the validity of her passport, and do you know why? She looked Hispanic and she had the name Greeley. Their antennas went up. She must not be who she says she is. And she said later on, I'm a Latina. I'm a service worker. I fit the description of what they're looking for over and over. Let's be clear about what's happening in Chicago. President Trump is abusing his power by shifting Justice Department resources away from keeping American families safe to fuel his mass deportation campaign. He is deploying federal law enforcement to zip-tie children and tear gas peaceful protesters and journalists for political theater, not for public safety. We need Justice Department officials who will honor their oath. I hope that the three of you, if you have that opportunity, will do just that. Let me close with a point that's been made repeatedly in this committee. There are some members of this committee who believe that violence in the public place for elected officials is inspired by the left. Let me say at the outset, I am opposed to violence against public officials and others, regardless of whether it comes from the right or the left. And I don't believe it is simply the province of the left to do these excessive and unacceptable things. Yesterday, Christopher Moynihan was rearrested. Christopher Moynihan had been prosecuted for breaking into the Capitol on January 6th and admitted that he rifled through the desk on the Senate floor of Senator Cruz. What happened was he was traced by local police to be involved in some threats against the life of Democratic House Leader Hakeem Jeffries. This is what Mr. Moynihan said: "I cannot allow this terrorist to continue. Even if I am hated, Hakeem Jeffries must be eliminated." That was a man who received a full and unconditional pardon by President Trump earlier this year. He had been arrested for his activities on January 6. The point I'm trying to make, and want to make clearly, violence, whatever the source, right or left, should not be tolerated by anyone on this committee. And to say it's simply from one side or the other is naive and doesn't reflect the reality of the world we live in. I yield.
Thank you. Before I call on Senator Kennedy and Senator Moody, Senator Cassidy asked me if I would say that he is unable to be here this morning because of another hearing in a committee that he chairs, the Health, Education, Labor, Pension Committee. He wanted me to communicate that he supports both nominees and that he wishes them well in their hearing today. Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's my pleasure to introduce Justice Crane and U.S. Attorney Van Hook. Everybody on this committee, those here, those not here, have read their resumes, and any fair-minded person can look at their resumes and see that they're eminently qualified. I'll start with Justice Crane. He's done it all. Finished LSU Law School, joined, eventually became a partner at one of the most prominent law firms in our state. After 20 years, he then was asked by the people to serve on the district court bench. He did. He was then asked by our people to serve on the Court of Appeal, State Court of Appeal. He did that. And now he's a member of the Louisiana Supreme Court. Mr. Van Hook went to Centenary, LSU Law School, clerked for a very prominent judge on the Fifth Circuit, clerked for District Court Judge Stagg, whose seat he will be taking. He spent his entire career, 25 years, in the U.S. Attorney's Office, handled 600 cases. Now, it's impressive. It's no secret that senators have a lot to say about who the president nominates to these jobs, especially on the district court. And I, for one, want to keep it that way, Mr. Chairman. And I thank you for your courage with respect to Democrat and Republican presidents for standing your ground on the blue slip, which I support unconditionally. So it's no secret that we send the names to the White House. And I've sent names during the Trump administration. I've sent Democrats' names to the White House. Now, they didn't pick them, but I sent them. And I don't really look at politics that much when I pick when I pick federal judges. I tell you what I look at. I look at judgment. First, of course, you want to make sure that an attorney is qualified. I try to pick lawyers that everyone in the community will look at and go, well, you know, I don't know him that well, but man, you know, he's a lawyer's lawyer. That's the way we've always done it on the federal bench, and the way we ought to continue doing it. So that's my initial litmus test. But then I look for judgment. And that's why Bill and I suggested to the President, Will and Alex. You will notice today that they have coolly unflappable demeanors. And underneath those coolly unflappable demeanors is a coolly unflappable demeanor. That's just the way they are. They've seen it all. They've heard it all. They're fair. They're just interested in resolving cases. and they're not that interested in politics. To my knowledge, neither one of them are interested at all. They keep the simple stuff simple, and they just try to do what they think is right. Now, I'm biased because I nominated them, but if you knew them, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ranking Member and my colleagues like I knew them, you would agree with me. And I'm just so honored that they're here today with their families, and I'm looking forward to this hearing.
Senator Moody.
Thank you so much. It is really wonderful to be here this morning. As a former Assistant United States Attorney, federal prosecutor out of Jacksonville, Florida myself decades ago, I have the unique pleasure of today introducing President Trump's nominee to lead the Department of Justice's Criminal Division, Mr. Tyson Duva. He is also joined by his family, many of I know from way back when, and it is so good to see you today, and I know he appreciates your support. These hearings are challenging sometimes, and they should be, and it is great to know you have people at your back that you love and that support you. It is very good to see my fellow Floridians, and great to see a fellow Floridian nominated for this position. He is indeed an example of prosecutorial excellence. He earned his bachelor's degree from the University of North Florida and graduated with his law degree from my alma mater, the University of Florida College of Law. Go Gators. I'm trying to see in my first year as a United States Senator how many times I can say Go Gators on the record. It's looking good, and thank you for giving me another opportunity. After law school, he spent several years working as an attorney at private law firms before clerking for a United States District Judge, who I also got to practice in front of as a prosecutor, Judge Timothy Corrigan. Once that clerkship ended, he joined the United States Attorney's Office in Jacksonville, where he has served for 18 years since. His nomination to lead the criminal division at the Department of Justice is a direct reflection of what Attorney General Bondi said from the start. DOJ, under President Trump and under her leadership as Attorney General, is going to return to its core mission. That is enforcing the laws and protecting the public. Having a prosecutor with nearly 2 decades of experience at the helm of DOJ's criminal division demonstrates Trump's administration to commitment to making America safe again. It has a solemn duty to, at the end of the day, to protect Americans and their safety so that we can do our job as a government and protect their rights. It's not a matter of if an American citizen lives in a red conservative town or a blue liberal city. Everyone deserves protection, and in people in positions that will work every day with diligence to make sure that they are doing their jobs and enforcing our laws. And that is why, along that vein, as the DOJ returns to its core mission, they are putting people at the helm that can help them do that. And that is why it is critical that we have lawyers like Mr. Duva in positions like this one. One of the highest honors in my legal career was when I was a federal prosecutor and had the privilege of standing up in court and saying, "My name is Ashley Moody and I represent the United States of America." I know Mr. Duva said that same thing and did that proudly and took that responsibility very seriously, and he will do so again at the helm of DOJ's criminal division. From young new USAs to the leader of the department's criminal division, to now the Attorney General of the United States herself, President Trump is doing a fantastic job of bringing in patriots who believe in a nation under a rule of law and are entrusted now with DOJ's awesome powers and responsibility. It is my honor to introduce Mr. Duva, who I know will bring his decades of experience of protecting others, standing as a guardian between chaos and order, crime and peace. He will bring that to the helm of the DOJ's Criminal Justice Division, and I cannot wait to see you get started.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy and Senator Moody. I'd like to administer oath now. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? They've all said affirmative answer to that. Now it's our tradition, please say, now it's our tradition for you to introduce family and friends and then give your opening statement. I'll start with Mr. Duva.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, and thank you, Senator Moody, for that kind introduction. And thank you, Ranking Member Durbin, as well. It is an honor to sit before the esteemed Senate Judiciary Committee to answer questions about my nomination as Assistant Attorney General, Head of the Criminal Division. I never anticipated that I would have this opportunity. I am deeply thankful. First, I want to thank my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Everything I have above nothing comes from him. I have not always pleased him. In fact, I have stumbled many times. He has always forgiven me and welcomed me back. I have many people I must thank and recognize, so I appreciate you bearing with me for just a few minutes. I thank President Trump, Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, Attorney General Pam Bondi, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, White House Counsel David Warrington, and Head of the Personnel Office Sergio Gore for supporting my nomination. Should I be confirmed by the Senate, I will use my experience as a prosecutor for almost 2 decades to do what I have always done, use my judgment, follow the rule of law, and do good for the American people. I'd like to introduce those in attendance. My wife, Julie, my brother, Brian. I'm going to talk about them in a moment. My friend, Charlie Meyer from Oceanside, California. My friend, Randy Jenkins and Chad King from Gainesville, Florida. So we're going coast to coast before the Senate Judiciary Committee today. For over 49 years, I've had the love and guidance of family, mentors, and friends. To my wife, Julie, I love you deeply, and I'm deeply thankful for you. During our years together, you have always handled the great times and the challenges, especially over the last few years, with your classic elegance, grace, and iron will. You are the most impressive person I have ever known and the best prosecutor I have ever seen. You served the DOJ for 27 years with great distinction. Many times you tell me, I wish I could still do it. I carry that with me daily. To our children, they were too busy to be here. They said, Dad, you'll be fine. Just go it alone. To our children, Emma, Zach, Ty, and Gavin, you are all extremely impressive and uniquely talented. It is and has been the privilege of my life to parent you through the highs and lows, keep God as your guidepost, and never back down from the challenges in front of you. I am so proud of each of you. To my parents, Tony and Diana Duva, thank you for parenting me. This is a fortune that sadly so many do not have. Together, you weathered life's storms and remained focused on your commitment to raising and guiding Brian and me. I love you dearly. To my brother Brian and sister-in-law Ingrid, thank you for raising and guiding me. Brian, you were the best older brother and mentor a younger brother could have. Ever since I could form memories, I wanted to be you. I still do. That is the kind of man, brother, and mentor you are. And I have some important mentors to thank, and then I'll wrap up. To my college baseball coach at the University of North Florida, the legendary Jack Dusty Rhodes, thank you for taking in a walk-on like me and giving me a chance. You taught me the difference between winning and losing and how to take a tough and disciplined approach to baseball and, more importantly, to life. To George E. Buddy Schultz, when I first met you, I knew you were truly unique. You were one of the most elite trial lawyers in the country, and most importantly, you are a great man. Thank you for guiding me. To the Honorable Timothy J. Corrigan and career law clerk Suzanne Wiseman, you gave me an opportunity as a young lawyer to serve as a law clerk. It was invaluable. You both embody the legal principles of the reasonable jurist for all. To James R. Clint, as the United States Attorney in the Middle District of Florida in March 2007, you interviewed me and gave me the opportunity of a lifetime to become an Assistant United States Attorney. When I started in the office in August 2007, I came into an elite culture of professional expectation and opportunity for those who earned it. To the many law enforcement officers and prosecutors that I've worked with over the years, thank you for your commitment, experience, skill, and partnership. As a team, we made great and impactful cases for the citizens of our country. That is the calling, and we answered it. Senators, I sit before you today for your consideration as a career public servant in the United States Department of Justice. I am an experienced federal prosecutor. I have done the job the right way. As I said, it is a calling. Throughout my AUSA career, my prosecution teams represented the United States while marshaling complex investigations and charging decisions litigating in federal court, and trying cases. Through the wins and losses, I adhered to the rule of law. The job of a prosecutor is clear: do the right thing for the right reasons. If confirmed, I will bring that same approach to the criminal division. I look forward to working with its great and many public servants, many of whom I have worked with already. What we public servants have is our prosecutorial integrity. I will protect it. I look forward to answering your questions today, and my goal is to earn bipartisan support during this advice and consent phase. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, Ranking. Got it. Looking for the red light. Thank you, Chairman Grassley, Ranking Member Durbin, and members of the committee for holding this hearing and giving us the opportunity to be here today. I want to thank President Trump for this nomination. It is truly the professional honor of a lifetime to be nominated to serve my country on the district court, federal district court. I want to thank my our home state senators, Senator Cassidy and Senator Kennedy. Thank you, Senator Kennedy, particularly for the kind remarks that you made and for the assistance that you've given and support that you've given throughout this process. I want to thank my father, who is not here today but is watching on TV. My dad was the second youngest judge ever elected in the state of Louisiana, and he's been a model for me in every aspect of my life. My mother was my greatest defender, and I choose that word carefully. I never did anything wrong in my mother's eyes. We lost my mother about a month ago on September the 5th. I will tell you that there's a feeling with me today, and you would have to have known her, that she has some hand in my presence here today. She will be immensely proud, and we miss her very, very deeply. I want to thank my siblings, my sister, my oldest sister, Sheila, my brother, Wes, and my sister, Emily, for all the support that they have given me as well. I want to thank a couple of people that I practice law with. My senior partner in the law firm of Jones Fussell, where I practiced for 22 years, Bill Jones. He taught me the how to practice law. The attention to details that he taught me is something that I have used as both a practicing lawyer and as a judge. And two of my closest friends were my law partners, Jeff Shane and Wayne Burris, tremendous friends. I also want to specifically give attention to two people on my staff because they have been with me, one for just about my whole life. Lee Gillespie, who is a law clerk for me. Lee and I grew up together. We were roommates in college. I went on to practice law. He finished law school, number 3 in his class at LSU, joined me as a law partner for 17 years, and then has served as a law clerk for me at the Court of Appeal and at the Supreme Court as my senior law clerk. He is simply the best, and I appreciate everything that Lee has done and been there for me. I also want to specifically thank and acknowledge Janelle Baton. Janelle was 16 years old and an intern in the law office that I joined when I got out of law school. A year into my practice, I needed an administrative assistant / secretary, and I knew the one that I needed, and I hired Janelle, and she has been the only secretary and administrative assistant that I've had through my nearly 40 years of practicing law and being a judge. Last, but certainly not by level of importance, I want to acknowledge my kids and their mother, Sherry. My children are grown and have successful careers in their own right. William, my oldest, has given me my 2 grandchildren, Parker and Collins, Matthew and Michael, twin boys. and my youngest is Elizabeth. Nothing that I do at in any endeavor, nothing that I do will I take more pride in than what they do. And I am very grateful and thankful for them. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity, and I look forward to answering your questions.
So I would like to thank President Trump for this nomination and Senator Kennedy and Senator Cassidy for their support. Senator Kennedy, thank you for your kind introduction. I'd also like to thank Chairman Grassley and Ranking Member Durbin for scheduling this hearing today, and all of you for considering my nomination. Here today with me are my wife of 20 years, Tricia, our children, Kate and John. I couldn't be more proud of Kate and John. They inspire me every day to be a better person. I'll give all the credit for their good qualities to Tricia. Tricia is not only my wife of 20 years, my best friend, she's also a talented lawyer in her own right. She and I both clerked together for Judge Tom Stagg, and as Senator Kennedy mentioned, that I'll be in his court if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed. And he was our mentor, friend, and unparalleled judicial icon in Louisiana. I have some friends here with me today, all of whom I've known for almost 30 years or over 30 years, and one of whom I've known for over 50, and could not be more grateful for them being here with me today. Watching from home are my mother, Jane, and my stepfather, Patrick. They have both sacrificed so much for me. They've given me their unconditional love and support, and I appreciate all that they've done for me. Also, watching from home are Tricia's parents. They have been there for our family, and would give you the shirt off their back and support us in everything that we do. And finally, I'd like to acknowledge the talented men and women of the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Louisiana. They have helped me develop as a lawyer and are dedicated public servants who get up every day to serve the United States. They make our community safer, and they protect the interests of this great country. And thank you so much to all of you for considering my nomination, and I look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Testimony to us in your opening statement. We have 5-minute rounds. After my 5 minutes up, as I previously announced, Senator Kennedy is going to chair this hearing. I'm going to start my question with Mr. Duva. During your time in the U.S. Attorney's Office, you've developed impressive trial practice and have personally tried more than 20 cases to jury verdict. Please tell us how your experience handling the nuts and bolts of criminal prosecution has prepared you to lead this Justice Department of Criminal Division.
Thank you, Chairman Grassley, and thank you for your time in your office last week. I thought we had a great discussion. I think what you learn 18 years on the line as a line AUSA as you progress into more complicated cases is how to lead teams. And I did that with FBI, DEA, HSI, and many other agencies. I intentionally stayed on the line because of the specialties that I developed, and I thought I made the biggest difference for the American people in the cases that I prosecuted. And in fact, you always want the next one. When you finish a great case and you have some in the hopper, you can't wait to get to the next one. So I felt like doing the nuts and bolts work, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is what will prepare me and has prepared me to lead the trial attorneys and their immediate supervisors and their supervisors in the criminal division, because what we will focus on is doing the best cases that we can that make the biggest impact for all American people, regardless of who you are or where you live.
Justice Crane, you got an award from Louisiana's largest victim rights organization, Crime Fighters, Inc. And this is also an issue as chairman of the committee that I've tried to advocate for, victims' rights. Can you tell us a bit about the role of a judge in protecting victims of crime? And I congratulate you on your Judge of the Year award from the Crime Fighters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. my first role as a judge, and quite frankly, the award, while I was honored to get the reward, obviously I didn't seek the award. The first role as a judge is to be fair and impartial to all the parties that come before the court. But you can't lose sight, and in Louisiana, we have constitutional provisions that actually protect the rights of victims. So there are things that many states don't have that we have expressly done in the law to protect victims. So I was very proud to get that award, honored to get the award. I do feel like at times that victims' voices, and maybe it's because they are not typically protected, the defendant's rights are constitutionally protected that come through the court, and oftentimes the victims do not get the same protections. But once again, my job as a judge, my role as a judge is to be fair and impartial to all parties, and because of the laws in Louisiana, we're able to give particular protections to victims.
Mr. Van Hook, in the USA's office, you've litigated hundreds of cases, and I said in my opening statement, I'll repeat, you've tried 18 cases to jury. You've also served as acting U.S. Attorney for the Western District of your state on 3 separate occasions. Tell us how your wide range of prosecutorial experience has prepared you for the federal branch.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I've been fortunate. My entire legal career has been in service to the United States. I started clerking for 2 fabulous judges, one on the Fifth Circuit and one in the district court, and I then started the job of my dreams as being an assistant United States attorney. And in that job, I've appeared in federal courts hundreds and hundreds of times and handled hundreds and hundreds of cases. And I've seen some judges that have been absolutely fantastic. And I have watched them treat people fairly with dignity and respect and move their dockets along in such a way as to provide justice to the parties before them. And I believe that just that front row seat has given me the perspective that I would need to be a United States District Judge if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed.
My last question will go to Mr. Duva. During your career as a federal prosecutor, you've earned numerous awards and commendations. You've received honors from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Homeland Security, ICE, IRS, FBI, Secret Service. What have you learned from collaborating across these federal agencies that you think will best serve you as the leader of the criminal division?
I learned teamwork, Chairman Grassley. In the more complicated cases, as I mentioned before, as you grow as a prosecutor, you have to take the right steps at the right time and work together with the law enforcement agencies. And at times I worked with the criminal division, the fraud section, the public integrity section. And difficult cases are difficult to make. And I learned patience, strategy, teamwork, and the proper use of the grand jury to make those cases. But teamwork is the word that I would use most often.
Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Chairman Grassley. Mr. Duva, it was a pleasure to meet you in my office. I had never met you before, and you did well. You made, I thought, a convincing, sincere presentation of your belief of that the responsibility of the U.S. Attorney is unique. You acknowledged the authority of the office and the power of the office to change lives. You've been involved in a case that drew national attention on public corruption, and we talked about that for some period of time. The Penn section of the Department of Justice, which is part of your division, if you're confirmed, has been reduced in number from 30 to 2, and the 2 are literally novice political appointees. I was heartened to hear you believe that the Penn plays an important role in making decisions involving prosecution of public corruption. There's a longstanding requirement that prosecution of public officials be reviewed by Penn's career prosecutors to ensure that they are not politically motivated. Attorney General Bondi has reportedly eliminated this requirement. When we met, you told me you thought Penn played an important role in the process. Do you agree that Penn prosecutors should review the prosecution of public officials?
Thank you for the question, Ranking Member Durbin, and I enjoyed our 25 minutes in your office on Monday. I appreciate your time, and I thought we had a great and honest discussion. To answer your question about Penn, I've worked with Penn in multiple cases. I tried a case against a former member of Congress in 2017 with Penn, and it was a very good partnership. What I will do if I'm confirmed by the Senate is have a discussion with the Deputy Attorney General about repurposing Penn and figure out how to, if there's a lane, to build up that section and make it a more robust section than it is. I'm aware of the news. I wasn't involved in any of those decisions of it going from 30 lawyers to 2 lawyers. I understand some of those lawyers are detailed in other portions of the criminal division. But I think from my own experience, which is a specialty of mine, that public corruption prosecutions have an absolute place, both in the U.S. Attorney's offices and the criminal division. And I will have discussions with Deputy Attorney General Blanche because I believe the criminal division should have a footprint in those prosecutions and evaluating cases at the national level.
We've seen reports of the indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Many of them were hastily brought by Lindsay Halligan, a Trump loyalist installed as the interim U.S. Attorney when other prosecutors balked or were removed. I said to my staff how impressive our meeting was, and they said, what will he do when he gets the Comey call? What will he do as an 18-year veteran of the U.S. Attorney's Office when a political figure in this administration says, this is what I want you to do, prosecute this person, whether it's a member of Congress or someone who wronged the president in years gone by? You said you've done the job the right way for 18 years, and I have no reason to believe you have not. The question is whether or not you're going to stand by that when you're faced with that moment. It could be a call from the White House. It could be a call from the Department of Justice. It could be a tweet by the President of the United States instructing you to prosecute an individual that you know there's no evidence against. So let me ask you, Mr. Duva, what will you do?
I will stand by. When I was sworn as an AUSA, I took an oath, and I take it seriously, and I bring it before this committee today. Those cases are not being handled by the criminal division. They're being handled by another U.S. Attorney's Office, the Eastern District of Virginia. I really don't know much about them other than what I've read about them, so I cannot comment specifically on those cases, and I've never met Ms. Halligan. But what I can tell you, Senator, and what I told you in your office, is that I will always do one thing, and that is apply the facts to the law in any case, whether it's a public corruption case, a transnational drug case, or anything of that nature, because that's what you're sworn to do, and that is the only path for a prosecutor. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, all we have is our integrity, and if I get a call or a referral, the case will go to a line attorney in the public integrity section or whatever section it is, and it will be worked up properly by properly using the grand jury, and we will investigate a case and make a charging decision based on the justice manual and the ethics of my office.
Mr. Van Hook, you've been acting U.S. Attorney in the Western District of Louisiana. I'm sure you're aware of the crime rate in Shreveport, Louisiana. What you may not know is the latest data shows that Shreveport has a higher murder rate than the city of Chicago. Is violent crime a problem in Shreveport?
Senator, violent crime is a problem anywhere, and in any murder, having one victim of a murder is one too many. And as being in leadership of the United States Attorney's Office in Shreveport, I've worked very hard with our state, local, federal law enforcement partners to do our best to help bring down the crime rate. We've worked with the district attorney there, the police chief. We've formed a collaborative partnership. You know, unlike a lot of places in this world today, we all get along there, and we've all worked very hard together to try to reduce crime.
Do you think you need the National Guard to fight crime in Shreveport, Louisiana?
I don't think we need them, but I think they would be welcome. I think that the chief of police would welcome them. Chief Smith, I believe, would welcome their help. And I think that whatever resources could be brought to bear to reduce crime in Shreveport would be helpful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Durbin, that was a good question. And yes, Shreveport has a crime problem. Most of our urban areas do. We have suburban crime and rural crime, but we do have a crime problem in Shreveport. You make a salient point. Senator Britt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to each of you for being here today. Congratulations on your nomination, and congratulations to all of your family members who are here in support of you. Mr. Duva, I will start with you. I'm concerned by the attacks on religious institutions and people of faith that we have seen across our nation. It seems that there is a rise or emphasis, whether it is the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minnesota or the LDS Church in Michigan. These things have been clearly motivated by religious animus. And when I am looking at how we respond to this problem, it is my opinion that it will require engagements from a number of different divisions within DOJ. But once you're confirmed and you are leading the criminal division, how are you going to work to ensure that people of faith can practice that faith and worship and gather freely without fear of being targeted for their religious beliefs? Talk to me about your plan there and how you're going to work to hold those accountable who are responsible for the violence or those who are responsible for inciting the violence.
Thank you for the question, Senator. And I want to note for the record that I was in your hometown of Enterprise, Alabama on October 11th when I took my son, Gavin, a baseball player, to a recruiting trip for Enterprise State Community College, for which he received his first offer. So go Boll Weevils.
Go Bo Weevils. That's outstanding.
To answer your question,
congrats.
Senator, thank you. In terms of violence against people of faith or any institutions, that is a serious matter. We live in a time where threats and violence, social media, and then carrying those out are all too familiar. And it is going to be important for the violent crime section and the criminal division to have a strategy to deal with that. We are living with people with their phones. They say anything, and oftentimes it's vile and disgusting and attacking to people of faith. And regardless of whether it's the Catholic Church or any other church or any religion, none of it is appropriate. I have prosecuted threat cases, not against churches or people of faith, but against judges, against lawmakers. And we will go through and go about those investigations as we always have. We will identify the threat, evaluate it based on the existing statutes, and make a prosecution decision. But violence against our institution, our churches, our government, it must stop, and we must beat it back with appropriate investigations and prosecutions.
What about those on our law enforcement officers, like what we've seen happen to so many of our ICE agents across the country, particularly in Dallas? I think that is an example. We want to make sure that doesn't happen again. Talk to me about your approach there in protecting our law enforcement officers and then holding those accountable who incite violence on them.
Yes, Senator, assault on any law enforcement officer is improper, and it, regardless of how it's motivated or where it's motivated, if it's far right, far left, or whatever we're talking about, and I've prosecuted those cases. I've prosecuted drug dealers who assault DEA agents when they go in and execute a search warrant, and those same principles of those statutes apply in all cases. So that is something that the U.S. Attorney's offices take very seriously. Again, I've done those cases in the criminal division as well. Violence against law enforcement is illegal, and it will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Thank you so much. Now turning to our two judicial nominees, in the spirit of our chairman, who always has the best lines of questioning in these hearings, I wanted to prepare and have some questions that would make him proud. So my question to you, Mr. Van Hook, is can you explain how litigants establish subject matter jurisdiction in federal court?
Well, a litigant in federal court on the civil sub would need to file a complaint that would set forth the cause of action that would be recognizable in federal court. Okay,
and tell me, can litigating parties waive their subject matter jurisdiction?
No.
All right. Well, Judge Crane, question for you. Current state of the Lemon test. Can you talk a little bit about your understanding of the Lemon test and its role historically that it's played in the Supreme Court Establishment Clause jurisprudence?
The Establishment Clause I can talk about.
All right, let's go.
There's a First Amendment right and the government cannot establish a religion. That comes in many, many forms. So you've got both an exercise right and establishment right under that First Amendment. So I've, excuse me, I've dealt with the Establishment Clause in some context, but generally speaking, the government cannot establish a religion, and we have the right to free exercise of our religion under the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Judge. Hope I did well, Mr. Chairman.
You were awesome. Just vote right. You done, Katie? Okay. Senator Blumenthal, who used to be U.S. Attorney himself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was a United States Attorney for 4.5 years in Connecticut, and so, Mr. Duva, your nomination has special significance. I think it ought to have enormous meaning to the entire committee and to the nation, because you will have enormous power over people's lives. And I was impressed by your statement that essentially your ethic is to do the right thing for the right reasons. And unfortunately, what we've seen in recent weeks is prosecutions based on personal animosity or political considerations of two very prominent individuals, James Comey and Attorney General Tish James, where career prosecutors resigned because they thought it was the wrong thing for the wrong reasons, in fact, based on improper considerations. Instructions from the president contained, among other places, in a post that he used to issue instructions. And so I want to probe a little bit on that question. Would you agree that no one should be prosecuted for their political beliefs or because they're a personal or political adversary of the president?
Thank you for the question, Senator Blumenthal. I can't speak to those cases because I'm not
I'm
involved
asking
in
you
them.
in general, and I think it's a yes or no question.
Yes, Senator. And as I said in my opening statement, individuals are prosecuted based on the facts, and those facts as applied to the law. And for 18 years as an AUSA, I wrote a pros memo in every case.
So I'm going to interrupt you with apologies because I have limited amounts of time. I'm going to take that as a yes, that they should be based on the facts and the law, not the president's personal feelings of animosity or political opposition. Let me just follow up, because you're going to be in this position. If you are pressured by someone in the White House, including the president, to bring criminal charges that you believe are unsupported by the facts and the law, would you resign?
We're going to evaluate every case that we receive, Senator, based on the facts and the law, and we will have processes. I mentioned a prosecution memorandum that I will evaluate at the highest level of the criminal division, and I will consult with the Deputy Attorney General, and my decision will be based solely on the facts and the law in every case.
And I'm asking what you would do if you are instructed to bring an indictment, to seek an indictment from a grand jury that you believe is lacking in facts and legal support. Would you resign? Would you stand up? Would you be counted? It's not enough to say, we'll review it on the process and so forth. Now is your time to tell this committee that you'll have the backbone to stand on conscience and conviction.
I don't think I'll be in that position, Senator, but all I can say is I will do what I've always done based on the Justice Manual and the process and the ethics of my office is evaluate cases based on the facts and the law and make decisions. They will not be based on personal animus. They will not be based on tweets. They will not be based on anything but the facts and the law in each case.
I'm disappointed in that response because I think it's less than the American people deserve by way of a commitment to the rule of law. but you did mention the Justice Department manual, and I have a proposal, and I'm hoping it will be supported on a bipartisan basis that would, in effect, among other things, codify the Justice Manual's prohibitions on political considerations in charging decisions and prohibit the White House from intervening or interfering in specific charging decisions. In addition, it would create a statutory right of action for people who are selectively or maliciously prosecuted. It would give them rights, much as they have in state court. I don't know about Louisiana, but in many state courts, there is a cause of action for malicious prosecution, and it would enact some key reforms in the grand jury process to ensure that the government isn't abusing its power. Would you support those kinds of reforms, Mr. Duva?
Be happy to work with the Office of Legislative Affairs and Legal Policy to have those discussions with the committee and also the Senate. And many of those protections do exist in the Hyde Amendment, which is a federal statute that addresses malicious prosecutions or prosecutions that are not based in fact and law. So those protections do currently exist on the federal level.
My time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Blackburn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Mr. Duva, I do want to come to you. You know, I've got to tell you, I find it so curious that my colleagues across the dais are so concerned about weaponization, but under Jack Smith, they weren't concerned at all. And indeed, some of us were targeted by Jack Smith as a special counsel and with Arctic Frost. And ending 2 tiers of justice is something that A.G. Bondi has talked about. Having that 1 tier of justice and equal treatment is something that has been discussed. So as you're looking at this new role in the criminal division, I want you to talk for a moment about what you will do to end weaponization of our legal system.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn, and thank you for taking time to speak with me yesterday. I really enjoyed our meeting. The term weaponization is used quite a bit, and I think as a career prosecutor and in the criminal division, our litigating components with the trial attorneys, that you do what we've talked about, and every referral, every matter that's brought in by a law enforcement officer, it starts somewhere. And to begin a public corruption investigation or a nationwide fraud investigation or an international drug trafficking investigation, you have to have articulable facts and predication. You can't just start it because you feel like it. You don't start it based on a person because you don't like them. That is weaponization. You start based on the facts. This thing, we believe, we have these articulable facts have occurred. And then you go to the statutes and you begin your grand jury process with your grand jury subpoenas, and you work your way up to probable cause, whether it be a search warrant for electronic devices or whatever the case may be, a physical location. So there's a process that you go through and that I've become an expert in handling grand jury investigations. And there's so much value in that. You learn so much about your case from the grand jurors. Every grand jury that I've presented before, they have, at the end of it, they have thanked me for the scope and the breadth of the investigations that I've been involved in. So we're going to do it the tried and true way, Senator.
Yes.
We're going to evaluate the facts and apply those facts to the law and make charging decisions.
Well, I hope that that will provide some solace to my friends across the dais, because that is not what took place under the Biden administration, and we saw it time and again. And of course, some of us are living it. So thank you for that approach. I also want to talk about Memphis. Now, we have Memphis Safe Task Force that is in place, and I'm very grateful to Director Patel and A.G. Bondi and President Trump for the way they have approached dealing with crime in Memphis. Now, since the start of operations with the task force in September, we've had nearly 1,200 arrests. They have seized 200 illegal guns, 63 missing children have been rescued, and you've got gang members that are now off the streets, which is great. So one of the things we are focused on now is making certain that we get these cases into court. So I would like for you to talk a little bit about what you can do to ensure that we have rigorous prosecutions in these cases that are coming to us out of Memphis.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. I've lived that, but I've lived it in Florida, in our Ocala division. I worked with DEA in Gainesville for 10 years, and there was a task force down in Ocala named the UDES, the Unified Drug Enforcement Strike Force. So task forces are important because oftentimes those state and local officers have excellent informants. They have cooperating defendants, and you start there to build your multi-defendant cases. And I've always said this, multi-defendant drug cases solve gun violence and homicide problems. They go hand in hand. The tools of the drug trade are firearms. So I'm glad to hear that there's been great success in Memphis. I look forward to working with the dangerous drug section, the money laundering section, which I know is going to be put together, to partnering with districts in Tennessee and throughout the country to evaluate and solve those problems. I've done it myself. I've seen the results, and the communities are very thankful when that occurs.
I have one other question, but in the interest of time, I will send that to you as a QFR. We talked briefly about romance scams and the money that is being taken from many of our seniors, about $1.3 billion a year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask the following two foundational questions of all nominees who come before any of the committees on which I sit to gauge fitness to serve. So I will ask the panel, and we'll start with Mr. Duva and go down the line in your responses. Since you became a legal adult, have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
No, Senator.
Have you ever faced discipline or entered into a settlement related to this kind of conduct?
No, Senator Hirono.
No, excuse me, no, Senator.
No, Senator.
For Mr. Duva, if confirmed, you would oversee the public integrity section at the Department of Justice. Are you familiar with that section?
I am, Senator. I've tried cases with the public integrity section myself as an AUSA
Familiar.
in the Middle District of Florida.
So the public integrity section targets corruption. So let me ask you, if an incoming member of the government accepted $50,000 in cash in exchange for future government contracts, would that be a possible sign of bribery? Or I believe you referred to it as public corruption, yes or no?
Senator Hirono, I'll answer that with any case that comes to one of our trial attorneys will be evaluated based on the facts and the law. I think you're referring to some recent news.
So would you consider that accepting $50,000 that might raise questions about a bribe? I mean, I think it's a bribe, but you know, what do you say to it? Do you think that it's an indication?
It depends on the facts and the law. I know you're talking about a specific investigation that has been declined by the Attorney General and the FBI, but if you repurpose that, it's not just one thing that happens. It is basically you have to evaluate and investigate what happens.
Well, I think that there was no, whatever evaluation there was, although we're told by the Attorney General there was an evaluation, but we still don't know what happened to that money. Let me ask you another question. If a member of government complains that they don't have a nice enough airplane and then a foreign government offers to donate an airplane to them, would that be also a possible sign of bribery or public corruption? Again, yes or no?
I think you're talking, Senator, about the emoluments clause. I think it's the first I've heard of that clause in the news recently in the last 6 months or so. That is not something that the criminal division would weigh in on. That is an Office of Legal Policy question.
Well, you can sit there and tell me that it's an issue that will go to some other entity, but you know you're going to be running a department that concerns itself with public corruption. So I just want to know. I think the American people would like to know whether something like that where a president accepts a plane that is worth some $400 million, whether that indicates bribery or public corruption. You're not responding, so let me ask you another. If a member of the government wants to build a new government building and big tech billionaires jump in line to pay for it, would that raise concerns about bribery or public corruption?
Senator, I don't know what specific incident you're talking about. I'm not familiar with that.
Building
but
of
as
the
I said
ballroom.
before,
The demolition of the east wing and a building of the ballroom. You are aware that that is happening.
I am aware of that.
Does that indicate public corruption or bribery?
I don't see how that is. I don't know how that came about or the procurement for it or who's involved. That's
There
just
was
not
nothing.
something
The
I'm
president
familiar with.
decided that it would be a good idea, and companies are jumping in line to try and curry favor with them.
And again, Senator, we
Justice
operate on the
Crane,
facts. I don't know the facts
I'm running
of that.
out of time. Thank you very much for your non-answers. For Justice Crane, when you were running for the Louisiana Supreme Court in 2019, the news article stated, Crane has become the favorite choice of big oil and other industry and statewide business groups, viewed as a sympathetic ear for an industry facing pending litigation by coastal parties and landowners seeking payment for decades of alleged damage to coastal land by oil and gas companies. Justice Crane, did Chevron, the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association, and Koch Industry donate to your campaign?
Senator, I don't know, because campaign contributions in Louisiana go through a campaign committee that we are prohibited from soliciting or participating in.
Oh, so you don't know who contributes to your campaigns?
I do not know specifically whether those entities.
So therefore, if entities like this, which by the way they did donate to you, if you have no awareness of them donating to you, so that if matters that relate to them and their interests come before you, you wouldn't even know whether to recuse yourself? Is that the situation?
Well, that actually is, I think, one of the rationales and motivations for the prohibition for us being able to solicit or
Well, it's pretty
participate
clear
in
that you favored these industries, and as a matter of fact, when a case came before the Louisiana Supreme Court, you dissented from the court's majority to support the oil and gas industries. So thank you very much. I have some other questions that I will submit for the record, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Moody.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is great to be here with some great people. Appreciate you and all your families showing up here today to support you. This panel, I believe, reflects some of the very best among our American legal profession. Mr. Van Hook, you spent over 25 years prosecuting all sorts of cases in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Louisiana. Justice Crane, you served at each level of Louisiana's judiciary, from the trial court to the court of last resort. And Mr. Duva, you've made an entire career out of doing justice, going after the bad guys, from drug traffickers to fraudsters, corrupt public figures. You've gotten up each day, put on the white hat, and worked to defend the rule of law in this country. I'm an attorney. Attorneys often get bad raps. I think it is so important that we remind Americans that there are lawyers like you that use their law degree for good and just causes to serve their fellow Americans, and we thank you for that. We need more like you. Unfortunately, we often see bad examples in the legal profession, and I always like to highlight when we're seeing remarkable works by remarkable men and women. So thank you very much for being here today. I want to start off with Mr. Duva. I've noticed that President Trump, and I commend him for this, in leadership in many of nominations, and not just within the Department of Justice, but in other agencies, people are being brought in from across America that might not have been worked in agencies before. They might have been working in the details of what that agency is seeking to accomplish in the day-to-day work, but in other states, in other ways. Certainly that's you. You're being plucked from the great state, the great free state of Florida, and being asked to come serve in a leadership capacity here in Washington. I, for one, think that is great. It brings fresh eyes, perspective. It gets away from someone maybe that was raised in the petri dish of the swamp, and it brings in someone to focus again on what is the mission of the agency and how do we remain true to that. In that vein, if you're confirmed in this position, you'll be asked to do a lot of hiring and filling out your ranks to complete the goals of that mission. And I'd like to hear from you, and I know the committee would, what type of attorneys will you be looking for to fill the ranks of your division?
Thank you, Senator Moody. And you and I came into the same culture in the Middle District of Florida. We were hired by the same U.S. Attorney and First Assistant. You were hired by Paul Perez. I was hired by Acting U.S. Attorney Jim Clint, who was his First Assistant. We both came into an office of elite culture and opportunities for those who deserved it, wherever you came from. It didn't matter if you went to Harvard or you went to Florida Coastal or wherever you went. That's the attitude that I'm going to have. And I'm a sports fan, so I sometimes call lawyers players, and I don't mean that. I'm looking for great players. I look at myself as a general manager trying to find the best possible players that I can, and I'm looking for trial lawyers. I'm looking for lawyers, men and women, who have been at the end game, tried difficult cases, and know what that feels like, because it's really, really difficult. Being inside the courtroom gives you an experience like no other. And it's not just the basic cases, but as you develop into prosecuting the complicated cases, because that's what the criminal division is going to do. I always tell AUSAs that you're only as good as your best 10 cases. What are they? If they're the same topic, it's probably not great. But if it's a diverse topic and you've had multi-week jury trials, you've worked with teams of agents, you worked with agencies together, state and locals, your husband was a DEA agent, investigated and prosecuted complicated international drug cases. I've done that with DEA. I've lived that life, and those are the lawyers that I'm going to be looking for. People that get up, they're ready to fight, they've tried cases. I want them in supervision, and I want them as trial attorneys, and also those that are in the appellate section. They've done the appeal work, they've been in other parts of the Department of Justice, and they're tried and true. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you, Mr. Duva. And one of my greatest concerns, having come into the Senate, obviously I'm one of the newest senators here, is watching the American trust of our judiciary erode. We have to have confidence that our judiciary is fair and impartial. District courts uniquely interface with litigants. Our higher courts, our circuit courts of appeal, the United States Supreme Court, they're often dealing with briefs and attorneys, but you interface and trial courts will interface with litigants. How can you use that unique role to shore up trust in the judiciary? Either one.
Where I come from in Jacksonville.
I'm sorry, I was directing that to Crane or Van Hook. I
sorry.
apologize. Although I love your energy and enthusiasm, Mr. Duva.
Well, I join you in that, and I think that we have to be conscious every day that the strength that we have in the judiciary comes from the public's confidence in what we do. I'm a firm believer that one of the ways that we do that is to fairly and impartially apply the rule of law. There should be some predictability. If you read the law, you ought to have some idea of what you're going to be faced with when you go into court. I think that's important for public confidence. The other is to treat all of your litigants, all of the parties, with dignity and respect. I think that you have to treat them the way you want them to treat you in the institution, with dignity and respect. So those would be the things that I would say would be important to foster public confidence in the judiciary.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy. Good to be with all of you. Mr. Duva, thank you for the time in my office with you. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We know from personal experience about what used to be called the U.S. Attorney's Manual and is now called the Justice Manual. Will you adhere to and enforce the procedures and processes of the Justice Manual as Criminal Division Chief?
Senator Whitehouse, thank you for your time yesterday in your office. I really enjoyed our conversation. I thought it was open and honest. Yes, I will do that. There has been a contacts policy in force, really driven by pressure from this committee
going all the way back to when Senator Hatch chaired it under the Reno Department of Justice, that limits the people who can talk to each other about criminal cases to a very, very few at the top of the White House and to a very, very few at the top of the Department of Justice. And as we discussed, the obvious reason for that is to protect the department and indeed the White House from junior G-men squirrels in the White House or in the Department of Justice from cooking up mischief that their seniors, the people who are publicly accountable, aren't aware of. And that mischief is at its worst and at its most dangerous if it's coming through criminal prosecutions that aren't well-founded and haven't followed proper process and procedure. What is your understanding of the current contacts policy of the Department of Justice, and will you adhere to that and make sure your staff adheres to that?
Senator, I believe that policy is being evaluated by the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General. I believe at the beginning of this administration, there was a blanket memo that rescinded prior policies, including the contacts policy. I believe that was part of it, but there is going to be one forthcoming. I will abide by the policy, and I will expand on that. And as cases rise up through the criminal division for my evaluation, I will be speaking with my counterparts at the law enforcement agencies at my level about those cases. And if there's any inquiries from the White House over to the criminal division, I will be following the policy, which I'm sure will be along the lines of what you're talking about, very few people in the DOJ talking to very few people in the White House about specific cases.
Well, I would urge your DOJ handlers here to be sure to let the committee know as quickly as possible when that forthcoming thing comes forth, because frankly, I don't think this committee was aware officially until now that this was a lapse in many decades of a contacts policy. I think the only previous lapse was under Attorney General Gonzalez, and that did not work out well for him. You mentioned earlier that you have prosecuted, in fact, we discussed that you had prosecuted or at least investigated cases of threats against judges. As you know, there's been a plague of threats against judges. I want to make sure that you will commit that you will follow the evidence where it leads, which includes potential orchestration of those threats. In some cases, it is not enough to simply investigate the individual who uttered the threat. In some cases, the evidence suggests that somebody is behind a pattern of threats, either as an enterprise or as a conspiracy or in some other fashion. And I've been unable to get any reassurance from the Department of Justice that they will investigate orchestration of threats where there is predication of that orchestration. Will you?
You go where the evidence takes you, Senator. I prosecuted cases, threats against judges, as I mentioned before, whether they're solo threats or otherwise, and you evaluate where the case takes you. Threats from any group towards judges, legislators, executives, anybody is inappropriate, no matter where the orchestration occurs. So you follow the evidence just like you do in a drug case, just like you do in a corruption case. You follow the evidence where it leads, and that's exactly what we will do in the criminal division, not just in those kind of cases, but all cases.
Well, my concern is that there's a ban somehow on investigating that the Marshal Service is being discouraged from pursuing those cases, that the FBI, to which the Marshal Service usually hands off cases, is being discouraged. So keep an eye out for that, because that would be highly improper.
Yes, sir.
Last, and I hope this is something we can work together on, Senator Graham and I support a piece of legislation that allows for what you and I would call in rem proceedings against assets. And as you and I both know, right now, under U.S. law, asset seizure up to $500,000 can be prosecuted against the asset, in rem, against the thing. And that's why we have cases all over the place with weird names like United States versus $40,000 from the trunk of a 1979 Chevelle. Because the asset is the target, notice goes to the world, and anybody can come in and challenge the seizure of that asset, but you don't have to go through enormous effort to show ownership. You do it the other way around. Where this really comes to bear is where we're dealing with corrupt foreign criminals who have huge assets but have spent a lot of time hiding those assets behind all sorts of different legal screens. Cypriot bank accounts, Dakota trusts, Cayman Islands fake corporations, all of that. So I will ask you, and I'll follow up with a question for the record because I have gone over my time now. I will ask you to take a good hard look at whether the work of the Marshal Service seizing these very expensive assets would not be simplified quite a lot by letting the proceedings be pursued in rem, and ask for an explanation of why a foreign criminal or kleptocrat should have more rights in the U.S. court system for a billion-dollar asset than a regular, ordinary American does with respect to their property up to $500,000. So let's take that under advisement so you have a chance to reflect on it. We would like to pass that bill. We would like to get technical assistance from the department and its support for it, and thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations to the nominees. Thank you for being here. Mr. Duva, if I could just start with you. I've noticed that you've been asked a number of questions about hypotheticals about political interference. What would happen if so-and-so tried to interfere in an investigation? What would happen if you were asked to pursue politically motivated ends? What would happen if you were asked to pursue or launch a politically motivated investigation? So let me just ask you about a non-hypothetical, just to get your response, something that actually happened. Like, for example, the United States Department of Justice seeking to track the cell phones of 8 members of the United States Senate without any criminal predicate, without any notice to any senator, multiple of whom sit on this committee, including myself, without any legal process to the senator targeted whatsoever. They tracked all incoming calls to our phones, all outgoing calls to our phones, all metadata associated with the calls, including location, the duration of the calls. Does this sound appropriate to you? Does this sound like appropriate behavior for the Department of Justice to be engaged in?
Senator Hawley, I appreciate the question, and I'm noticing the panel's asking me a lot. I'm happy to share with my colleagues as we keep going in this discussion. But, sir, what I think you're talking about is issuing a grand jury subpoena for cell phone records. And in any investigation, you better have, pursuant to the Justice Manual, specific and articulable facts about why you're doing that. If you do not have that and you cannot articulate those facts under 18 U.S.C. 2703, that subpoena does not get served.
You know, the other thing that's interesting about this context, and I appreciate your answer, is that the records that they sought to track and trace and tap, the devices that they sought, are in the possession of senators pursuant to their constitutional duties. 2 U.S.C. Section 6628A specifically says that those records do not become the possession of cell phone companies. They don't become the possession of Verizon or AT&T or whomever. They are retained by the senator's office. Why? Because these devices are used pursuant to the speech and debate responsibilities of senators. Yet the Justice Department did not inform senators, did not seek from our offices these records. They went instead ex parte to the telephone companies, got the records apparently, again, with no criminal predicate that we know about, no process whatsoever. It is a grotesque violation of statutory law and also the separation of powers, particularly the speech and debate clause. Here you have an executive branch directly spying on members of the legislative branch while they are performing their constitutional duties. Let me just ask you, Mr. Duva, does this sound like something we want to normalize? I mean, is this something you'd like to see the current Justice Department doing on a regular basis? I mean, should they be tracking the cell phone records of everybody down here on the left side of the dais? Would that be a good thing for the country?
Clearly no, Senator.
Clearly no. Clearly no. I can't tell you what an outrage I think this is, and so it's just a little bit hard for me to stomach sitting here and listening to you be asked about all of these various hypotheticals. This isn't a hypothetical. This happened. It happened, and so far there have been exactly zero repercussions for it. And I just want to say that if my colleagues are serious about stopping political weaponization of the Justice Department, why don't we start with this right here? Why don't we find out who authorized this? Why don't we find out what laws, if any, were broken? Why don't we appoint a special prosecutor to go after this and get to the bottom of it? And I will just reiterate my calls for this committee to do full oversight hearings on exactly what happened as part of this weaponization, as part of this, I think, both illegal and unconstitutional targeting of United States senators in their constitutional responsibilities. At the same time, the same Justice Department was also targeting, we now know, thanks to whistleblowers, 92 separate conservative organizations, including Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA, a campus organization. Why? I guess because it was conservative. I mean, this is the most unbelievable abuse of the Justice Department that I've not only seen in my lifetime, that I've ever read or heard about in our country's history, because it's not one little thing, it's an entire pattern. This is the same Justice Department that sent a SWAT team to the home of a pro-life demonstrator. This is the same Justice Department and FBI that tried to recruit informants into Catholic parishes. This is the same Justice Department that targeted the chief political opponent of the then sitting president for prosecution to try to keep him off of a ballot. I mean, it is unbelievable. And I hope that my colleagues agree. I hope we can all agree. We cannot allow this to become the norm. And I hope, Mr. Duva, if you are confirmed, you will do your part in the criminal division to make sure that the resources of this powerful, powerful agency are used for good, to protect the American people, protect the rule of law, to put violent criminals away, not to prosecute the political agendas of some politician somewhere. Thanks for being
I will, Senator. Thank you.
Senator Welch.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Could you say that again, Mr. Chairman?
You know,
I like that.
You know, I'm amazed at how quickly it went to your head.
You shouldn't be. You know me well.
Well, that's true, but I wanted to keep it on the down low so you could at least maintain the appearance of a reasonable person. But it's good to have you, Mr. Chairman. Judge Crane, in Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, judges have to run for election, which I think has some unfortunate consequences. That obviously is not your creation. If you want to be a judge, you got to run. But it meant you had to do what we have to do. You had, I guess, in one of your campaigns, $1.2 million. And I know you'll get legal contributions, and that'll include from the oil and gas industry, which oftentimes, which does have litigation in front of the court. And I know that one of the controversial cases that you had to make a decision on involved Chevron and Hess, which the dispute was about drilling and operating oil and gas wells on the plaintiff's property, and that those companies were accused of failing to close or follow state environmental laws for the pits that they created. And there was a lot of environmental damage. I'm not questioning your decision on that, but I just wonder if you could give me your thoughts about the obvious question that people would see who are not involved, that this could create a conflict of interest. I mean, they would say that about us as well, so I'm not singling you out. But where you're a jurist, you're supposed to be, you have the responsibility of making a fair and impartial decision. Yet, in order to get elected under the law of Louisiana, not your law, you have to raise money, and these companies that have litigation before you make contributions to your campaign. Do you think it makes sense to have judges have to run for election and raise money from the people whose decision, whose cases are going to be brought before them?
Senator, first of all, as you've acknowledged, that is the rule. And that we have in Louisiana. We've been electing judges in Louisiana, as far as I know, since its inception. We believe in the electoral process. Is it perfect? No. Could some people suggest that it creates the appearance of partiality to one side or the other? I think that's a fair assessment that it could.
So
Now,
do you think it may, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I will say that we have tried, or the legislature has tried. We at the Supreme Court, with the rules that we put in place, have tried to inoculate ourselves as much as possible by not, or by being prohibited from soliciting contributions. But you get to access our campaign finance reports.
No, I understand that. It's just a question of whether that makes sense. You'll be in a different situation. But let me ask you, Mr. Duva, I had a nice visit with you. I appreciate that Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. I'm very concerned, to be candid, that the Trump administration seems to be taking the position that we really shouldn't enforce it. And of course, that's the provision that says our companies can't bribe foreign officials in order to get business. And I noticed that the criminal division has recently declined to prosecute Liberty Mutual Insurance Company after the company itself disclosed that it had paid $1.47 million in bribes to officials at state-owned banks in India in exchange for them referring banks to the company. In my understanding, the Trump initiative is, or position is that, look, everybody does it. That's the way the world works. I disagree with that. It may be that a lot of people do it, and it may be the way a lot of the world works. But I think one of the things we're proud of is that our companies make their case on the basis of quality of product, service, and price. What's your position on vigorous enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act?
Thank you, Senator Welsh, for the question, and thank you for the visit yesterday. I really enjoyed our discussion. I'm aware that there was a stay on FCPA cases based on an executive order in February. There's now a Deputy Attorney General Blanche memo from June of this year, and it set parameters for these cases going forward. I will abide by that. The focus will be on transnational criminal organizations where bribes are involved and also market manipulation scams. And now the criminal division has charged, I believe, 8 or 9 of those cases this year and just successfully concluded a trial under the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act where there were guilty verdicts by the criminal division in that case. And I look forward to abiding by that memo and progressing the good work of the men and women in that section.
I thank you. My time is up, but I spent a lot of time giving a hard time to the chairman. So I just have one more question. Just one more question. The public integrity section has been decimated. People have been sent from where they were working to other locations. It's down from 20, there's only 2 attorneys and 1 paralegal, and that is in contrast to 36 full-time career attorneys and 12 paralegals. I believe that is an incredibly important unit within your division. What are you going to do, and what's your position about how that has been decimated?
Thank you, Senator Welsh. Ranking Member Durbin asked me that question right out of the box, and I've answered it a couple other times. I'm happy to answer it here. We're going to evaluate that section. I've tried cases with the public integrity section. I know they've had very good lawyers over the years. I want to evaluate with Deputy Attorney General Blanche how that section is going to exist, how we might have a nationwide approach, because I believe that the criminal division should have a footprint in nationwide public corruption cases. That's something that I did as an AUSA. I investigated and prosecuted public corruption cases at the national, state, and local level, and I look forward to that discussion. And thank you for the question, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to each of you for being here. Mr. Duva, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. Congratulations on your nomination to be the Assistant Attorney General.
Thank you, sir.
Over the Criminal Division. Your experience as an Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Middle District of Florida will serve you well. In that role, you've done a number of things, including going after major international drug defendants and people who have done our country harm. Over the last few years, we've seen a massive set of gains achieved by international drug cartels who had a shocking degree of permissiveness shown to them as they trafficked millions upon millions of people into the United States, illegal immigrants. who also trafficked an unprecedented amount of harmful drugs, including enough fentanyl, to kill a lot of people in this country. How will you work, if confirmed, as Assistant Attorney General over the Criminal Division to help dismantle the international cartels and their drug trafficking and human trafficking experts? And do you think that's a battle we can win?
Thank you, Senator Lee. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with your staff, met with your general counsel and your chief of staff. We had a great meeting yesterday. That's a great question. I've been doing that for much of my career. At the U.S. Attorney's offices, particularly in the Middle District of Florida where I worked, you build those cases from the mid-level up. And it's a fight that we're always going to fight. And I've seen firsthand in cartel-related cases and also following the Take Back America memo of Deputy Attorney General Blanche, that is going to be a foremost focus of the criminal division to prosecute, investigate, and prosecute transnational drug crime. As you mentioned, the drug cartels will do anything for money. They'll traffic people, they'll traffic fentanyl, they will take money from people operating legitimate businesses in their space. They will internationally launder money in any way possible. They're very good at it. But that's a fight that we're never going to give up. We're going to work hand in hand with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the dangerous drug section, and the money laundering section, and we are going to investigate those cases with vigor. It's something that I did for many, many years, well over a decade in the central part of our state. And it's not just buying drugs off the corner. It's not doing the simple car stops. Those are minor tools in those investigations. You build them by your informant base, by your cooperating defendants, by charging minimum mandatories, by flipping defendants, proffering them, putting them in the grand jury, seeking indictments of other individuals. And you do that from where I did it in the Ocala Division and the Jacksonville Division in the Middle District of Florida. You go south to Miami, you go north to Atlanta. Those cases take you to the border, and they end in Mexico and Colombia and other countries throughout the world. I've worked with OIA to extradite defendants from Colombia, from Mexico, and that's a fight that we're never going to give up because it's critically important. And I've seen that at the other end. I tried a case, one of the most difficult cases I tried, a 19-year-old girl in Jacksonville who had just graduated from a local high school and had enlisted in the United States Army. Before she was going to enlist, she had a summer job at a Cracker Barrel restaurant. She got in with the wrong crowd. She was dating the wrong guy. He and another guy got heroin laced with fentanyl. First-time drug user, dead. I sat in her parents' house and I told her I would bring those to justice. And we didn't just make the first case. We made the next level and the next level, and we tried the last level of the case. That didn't bring their daughter back, but I've seen that at that end, and I've seen that at the 100-kilo end, and that's a fight that I'm never giving up.
It's a strange market, isn't it, that will inject into their product another substance that is even more deadly than the product they're selling. I mean, ordinarily, wouldn't that make be a poor market decision to poison your own customer base? And if so, why does this happen in this industry?
The cartels will sell anything Americans and other citizens throughout other countries will take. Unfortunately, there's a demand for fentanyl, and you see numerous overdoses with the same individuals. It creates a horrific toll on them and their families and often leads to death. And the cartels don't care. They know there's 365 million Americans. If they kill some, frankly, that's their goal in many instances, but they will traffic whatever Americans will take. And that's why, as the Department of Justice, the Criminal Division, the U.S. Attorney's offices, that has to remain at the forefront of the investigations and prosecutions because it's disgusting, it's vile, and it ruins people's lives.
A few years ago, I spoke to a man whose daughter had passed away under similarly tragic circumstances. And I asked him a similar question and asked him, why would the dealer not see that book of business dry up after that? And the answer was stunning as to the effect that there are some dealers who almost regard it as a plus, almost a selling point. Wow, they've got strong product. Have you seen this assumption being made?
Hundreds of times, sir.
Tragic. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Senator Schiff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Duva, first of all, thank you for taking the time to meet with my staff. I appreciate that. I served in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles. I was also in the public corruption, government fraud section. prosecuted corrupt government officials, fraud cases, an espionage case against a FBI agent who spied for the Russians. In all the time I was in the office for about 6 years, so considerably less time than you were. But nevertheless, never had any political figure contact me to tell me you should bring a case against so-and-so, or you should refrain from bringing a case against so-and-so. Never had that experience, and I worked predominantly under Republican attorney generals until I think the end of my tenure in the U.S. attorneys. Was that your experience as well? Did you ever have a political figure tell you who you should prosecute or that you should refrain from prosecuting someone?
Senator, I enjoyed the meeting with your staff yesterday. I see them behind you. We had a great discussion. I thank you for that opportunity to be in your office. And the answer to your question is no. Nobody's ever told me to prosecute a specific person or not to prosecute a specific person.
And how would you handle a circumstance where someone did tell you to prosecute someone, or that conversely you should drop a case against someone for political reasons?
Those who are responsible for my nomination, sir, I'm confident that they know my background. I'm confident that they know I've never done that and will never do it. And I'm confident that they know that I will only follow the facts as applied to the law. As I said before to Ranking Member Durbin's question, any kind of public corruption investigation, and you know this from your 6 years in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Central District of California, there has to be predication. You can't just investigate somebody to investigate somebody. There has to be specific and articulable facts that predicate an investigation. And I've evaluated that even to start an investigation and worked hand in hand with the FBI when I've done my local public corruption cases, my state-based public corruption cases, and the nationwide public corruption cases that I've investigated. If you don't have it, you don't start it.
You know, Mr. I heard you make a similar response to Senator Durbin in terms of you don't think you'll be put in that position. And it calls to mind a conversation I had with Mr. Blanche prior to his confirmation, when I think he expressed the same view, I'm not going to be put in that position. And we've heard that from any number of nominees in this administration. I don't expect I'll ever be put in the position that you're describing, and yet they almost all have. I'm grateful for your optimism, but I think it probably is only a matter of time before you're put in that position. And as my colleagues have indicated, I think the question is how will you respond when you are put in that position, not whether it will ever come up. So let me ask you this. Ever since Watergate, there has been a strong norm, guardrail, that has maintained the independence of the Justice Department from pressure from the White House. This was part of the post-Watergate reforms. And it served our country remarkably well in insulating the department from political pressure. Presidents over the course of years have set general policies. I want to see more prosecution of drug cases, or I want to see more prosecution of corruption cases, or I want to see more prosecution of illegal immigration cases. But since Watergate and until now, we have not seen a White House identify individuals they want prosecuted. This goes beyond anything I think we saw during Watergate. So let me ask you as a general matter, what is your view of the desirability, I think necessity, of maintaining the independence of the Justice Department from political pressure emanating from the White House?
Thank you for the question, Senator. I look forward to, of course, my direct report will be Deputy Attorney Blanche, who you mentioned. And I've had multiple interactions with him. I believe he's doing a great job. And I look forward to working with him to do what we've always done. He was an AUSA in the Southern District of New York, just like you, just like me. And I really don't believe I'll be put in that division. When you look at the components of the criminal division and what we do, these are nationwide impact cases for all Americans. Should I be tasked with evaluating a public corruption case like you're talking about, whatever that case may be, I can assure you I will do it how I've always done it, and that will be based on the facts and the law and the independent decisions of the Justice Department to make those charging decisions, and that's exactly how I'll operate, sir.
Well, Ms. Duva, I appreciate what I would describe as the triumph of hope over experience in your testimony, but I hope your experience is commensurate with your hope, but I fear it will be otherwise. And I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Duva, you've been nominated to serve as the Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division. The Criminal Division sits at the heart of the Department of Justice's mission to protect the public. Your nomination comes at a moment where Americans are looking for one simple thing: to keep our cities safe, to keep our families safe. Because over the last 5 years, we have watched a dangerous pattern take hold in American cities. From 2020 to 2025, so-called peaceful protests left behind more than $2 billion in property damage. Blue cities: Minneapolis, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, St. Louis, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. In some instances, entire downtowns burned, police precincts overrun, and small businesses destroyed overnight. 19 people were killed directly during the Black Lives Matter riots, and hundreds more died indirectly because ambulances couldn't get through and police were overwhelmed. After the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel, anti-Semitic mobs took over college campuses, threatening Jewish students, seizing buildings, and spreading hate. And it didn't stop there. In 2025, coordinated riots once again engulfed Los Angeles and Portland before spreading across the country. Mr. Duva, do you believe that these were spontaneous riots, or do you believe they were organized and financed?
Thank you for the question, Senator Cruz. All of those incidents that you talked about were a real dark mark on our history during that time. I watched it on TV. There is no place for rioting, burning buildings, assaulting law enforcement officers, and there did seem to be coordination behind those. I agree with you. In any case that comes across the criminal division, we will be evaluating that. Again, I answered questions along that lines from Senator Britt, whether it's religious violence, violence against law enforcement officers, the Jewish community, or what have you. We will prosecute those cases to the fullest extent of the law and follow the facts where they lead. If they lead to coordinated attacks, financing, things of that nature, we will evaluate those cases through grand jury investigations and prosecute them appropriately.
Excellent. Federal law right now criminalizes rioting under 18 U.S.C. Section 2101, the Anti-Riot Act, which makes it a federal offense to travel or use interstate facilities to incite, organize, promote, or participate in a riot. The Biden Department of Justice refused to enforce that law. Will you commit under your leadership the Department of Justice will once again enforce Section 2101?
Yes, Senator. I think the best way to do that is you partner with the U.S. Attorney's offices in those areas. You mentioned Portland, Atlanta, some other cities, and that's exactly what I intend to do as the head of the criminal division, to have relationships with the U.S. attorneys in those areas, to contact them, let them know. We'll just want to operate on our own. You do that at times. The U.S. Attorney's offices do it at times, but it's best when you work together, and we will do that to prosecute that statute.
Excellent. Unfortunately, enforcing the Anti-Riot Act is not enough to combat the 21st century leftist riots that have burned our cities. Like the mafia of old, today's agitators are part of a layered enterprise. The foot soldiers on the ground and the financiers and masterminds who plan and bankroll the operations. The Anti-Riot Act can reach the rioters in the street, but has difficulty reaching the consiglieres and the dons who plan the chaos. That's why Congress created RICO, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, to pierce the veil of coordination and hold every level of a criminal network accountable. Mr. Duva, RICO was one of the most powerful tools ever enacted and helped break the back of organized crime in America. Do you agree that that same model would be helpful in fighting today's politically funded violence?
I do, sir. You have to have evidence of the enterprise, and then you have to have the predicated crimes set forth in the RICO statute and also its sister statute, the Vicar statute. Those are tools that I'm well familiar with from my time as an AUSA. They were used in our Tampa division, they've been used in our Jacksonville division, and they are appropriate to evaluate in those circumstances.
Well, and that is precisely the logic behind legislation that I have introduced called the Stop Funders Act. The Stop Funders Act is simple. It adds rioting as a predicate offense under RICO, empowering the prosecutors to follow the money, to trace the network, and indict not just the rioter who throws the brick, but the donor who paid for it and put that rioter in that position to carry out that act of violence. It would give DOJ the tools to dismantle the financial architecture of political violence. In your judgment, would adding rioting to the list of predicate offenses under RICO aid in enabling the Department of Justice to fight and stop political violence and organized violence and rioting across the country?
We'll take all the tools we can get, Senator. I look forward to those discussions with the Office of Legislative Affairs and Legal Policy.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Justice Crane, we elect judges in Louisiana, do we not?
We do.
And we have elected judges, our people have decided to elect judges for a long, long, long time, haven't they?
As long as I can research, yes.
Are you responsible for that system of choosing judges?
Not at all.
When you run for judge, can you solicit campaign contributions?
You cannot.
You've run 3 times.
I have.
Have you ever solicited a campaign contribution?
I have not.
You have to go through a committee, do you not?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, one of my colleagues, not Senator Welch, suggested that you live in the left front pocket of the oil and gas industry. Is that true?
That is absolutely not true, Senator.
Do you live in anybody's left front pocket?
The only pocket I live in is the rule of law, Senator. And I think that my record reflects that.
That's certainly been my experience. I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Duva, you've heard the expression lawfare, have you not?
Yes, sir.
What does that mean to you?
Well, I think lawfare gets to the alleged weaponization of the Justice Department and things.
What does that mean?
Well, it's a term that's been used quite a bit. I think it means that the Justice Department becomes the tool of a sitting president or the Congress or whoever to do its bidding and that only, and not follow the law, not follow the facts as applied to the law. What we will do is not do that. We will do the converse of that.
Why is that dangerous?
Because it leads to bias, it leads to improper prosecution, it leads to messes in courtrooms. There's a reason there's a justice manual. There's a reason that there is Rule 6E.
I don't want to talk about the manual. I want to talk about just basic human decency and common sense.
It also erodes the faith of the justice system and our citizens.
Okay.
That is dangerous because it is based on those citizens where the end result, the citizens become jurors. And we need jurors to have confidence in the Justice Department and the prosecutions that it brings and to fairly evaluate cases.
Let me put it this way. Our judicial branch doesn't have an army, does it?
It does not.
Okay. Our judicial branch at the federal and the state level depends on its legitimacy for enforcement. I mean, people have to believe that justice, even though they may disagree with the result, people have to believe in the integrity of the system, do they not?
They do, because as I mentioned with jurors, if they don't and they're selected on a jury, they're not going to follow the judge's instructions to evaluate the cases based on the facts and the law. So it depends on the citizens to help us with the end result. And if that's eroded on the front end, it's eroded on the back end.
All right. If I'm a candidate for district attorney and I run for district attorney, saying, if you elect me, people, I'm going to prosecute Joe Blow, a well-known political figure. Is that lawfare?
It is. That's inappropriate.
That undermines the integrity of the criminal justice system, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
That suggests that justice isn't blind, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Now, look, nobody's blameless here. I remember when this nonsense started under President Biden. And I remember thinking, they have unleashed spirits they cannot control. This has got to stop. Now, I'm a United States Senator. I'm also on the Appropriations Committee. I have influence over your budget, don't I?
You do, sir.
Now, let's suppose I tweet out, I'm really mad at Joe Blow, and I think the Justice Department ought to prosecute him. Do I have the right to do that under the First Amendment? I'm not asking you whether it's wise. I'm asking you whether I have a right.
You do. You can tweet as long as it's nonviolent. You can tweet whatever thought you want.
You have the right to ignore me, don't you?
Absolutely.
All right, let me ask you about being a prosecutor. I've never been a prosecutor. As a prosecutor, you have a moral obligation to yourself and to the criminal justice system not to bring a criminal prosecution unless you think the defendant is guilty. Is that accurate?
Yes, in the Justice Manual, you have to have the
I don't care
reasonable
about the manual.
probability
I'm
of
talking
conviction.
about common human decency. Is that correct?
Yes, you have to know you have it.
Is that a principle that you agree with?
100%.
Okay. And you not only have to believe that the defendant is guilty, you have to believe that you can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, do you not?
You do. You have to have the facts. Without the facts, you have nothing.
Okay. Is that a principle that you possess?
I do, and that's how I've operated for 18 years.
Okay. And you also have to believe, do you not, that the prosecution is in the public interest? Is that correct?
You do.
Okay. Now, if one of your superiors came to you, well, let me answer the question for you for how I would do it. If one of my superiors came to me and said, look, you got to prosecute this case, and I looked at it, and either I didn't believe that the defendant was guilty, or I didn't believe I could prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, or I thought it was not in the public interest because it would undermine the integrity of the criminal justice system, I would resign.
You would decline the matter.
Sir?
You would decline the matter for sure.
Right. And if they told me, if my superior said, look, Kennedy, what planet did you just parachute in from? You don't have a choice. I'm your boss. I'm telling you to do it. I would resign. How about you?
I have no problem doing that. I would first just say, we're not doing this case, and here's all the reasons, and the discussion could go from there.
Okay. And if you were told to do it or quit, what would you do?
I'd quit.
Okay. Would you ever advise a client not to follow a federal court order?
No, sir.
I appreciate that. Appreciate you not qualifying it. If it's okay to disagree with a federal judge ruling, isn't it?
I often have.
Yep. It's okay to appeal it.
Absolutely. We have an appellate section. It's one of the best sections in the criminal division.
Within the bounds of legal ethics, it's okay to criticize it, isn't it?
Yes, internally.
But you got to follow it, don't you?
You do, absolutely.
Because that's called the rule of law, isn't it?
It is, and without that, you have anarchy and no confidence in the Justice Department.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the frank answers.
Thank you, sir.
All right, gentlemen, this hearing is concluded. Thank you to the I got to read this, folks. Thank you to the nominees for your testimony today. Written questions for the record may be submitted until October the 29th at 5:00 p.m. Justice Crane, how many times has Judge Crane, your dad, texted you during this hearing?
Quite a number, texts and phone calls.
I served with Justice Crane's father. He's just one of the best judges I've ever seen. Thank you for your patience today, and thanks for everybody. Thanks to all the audience members for sitting through this. This hearing is adjourned.